Now, your host, Michael Cohen, with the Capital City Recap on more compelling talk radio, 1320 WILS.
Michael Cohen, 1320 WILS. Thanks for tuning in. So the Attorney General today at East Lansing High School talking about bullying. It's the OK to Say program. And basically, since 2013, this program has collected more than 1,400 tips related to bullying, cyberbullying, and suicide. But even once you get through that experience, the real issue can be how it permanently affects you, being bullied itself. Someone who deals with this directly is Rusty Lozano. He's a licensed professional counselor at onlinebiofeedback.com, which is a biofeedback center. Rusty, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, and this, and we talked before, last time we talked about biofeedback and how it works, and you said you yourself were helped, right, with biofeedback. I think you said you had actually a shoulder injury and it helped you with that, right?
Yeah, that's what started the whole thing, is the shoulder injury, and that's what convinced me that learning to control physical reactions can actually affect how you feel emotionally.
And now you do this not only with adults, but with children, and children that are bullied, right? You actually have kids that are bullied that come in to see you there?
Yeah, we do see quite a few of kids that have been bullied, and they have, other symptoms that could be exacerbated by that. A lot of times we see anxiety go hand in hand with, kids that have experienced bullying, also anger.
When you talk about anxiety, what kinds of things do you see physically from some of these kids?
Well, you see, a conventional anxiety would be to kind of shut down, be less social. You see a lot less interaction with peers. Mm-hmm. They're quieter. They look sad. They look down. So there's physical appearance as well as how their behaviors are affected.
So how does biofeedback help them with something like that?
Well, first we have to kind of get to the core of the bullying and really understand the nature of what's happening. The bullying that we see today is not your average schoolyard bullying that I recall growing up. This bullying is taking on a new effect. You're not only you have a physical confrontation or verbal confrontation, altercation at school, but then it may actually follow you on some kind of social networking site where, things are said and it carries on and through the web.
Now, you were telling me that you're going to be treating a girl that actually has tics, and she's being made fun of at school because of her tics. Like, what is the issue for her? Like, what kind of tics are you talking about?
Well, her tics are more they're more mobile. You see them more through the body. You have verbal, and you also have tactile tics that were their facial features and their neck may actually twitch. But this particular kiddo, I was just told today, has a brand new name for the way that she's ticking. And so she came home and she's frustrated and spoke to the mom and how this is affecting, her wanting to go back to school.
Well, what do you mean a brand new name?
Well, they call her rotorhead now. And that's because her neck is constantly moving to the side and
that's horrible.
Uncontrollably.
No, it's a horrible thing to do. Now, have you seen her already, or?
No, this is the case that's actually coming in.
Mm-hmm. So her head's moving to the side when she just, without her being able to control it, just kind of flips to her shoulder or something?
Correct. Yeah, it's a motor tic, and her head is moving on sporadically. It actually gets worse with stress. She didn't have any of these symptoms over the summer, but then when she came back to school, here she goes and she has the symptoms.
Now, is that something that would happen because of bullying, or why does something like that even begin?
Really good. That's a great question, because this becomes like the chicken or the egg. We don't know if the anxiety is a manifestation of the stress and the tics occur because of that. Mm-hmm. We don't know if the tics were present before this and now the anxiety is secondary because she's being bullied and being made fun of.
And biofeedback is a way of basically relaxing. I remember you described very well how you can kind of relax your face even and your jaw, right? And you can kind of learn to really subdue yourself. Now with a tic, I mean, can that really overcome a tic?
Absolutely. You can learn to control the manifestations. What I'm seeing a pattern of with most of these kids that are coming in is that they're not able to verbalize their emotions into words. I'm angry. You made me upset. I feel sad. And so what happens is a lot of times we see this suppression where they keep a lot of these emotions in, and all that intensity has to go somewhere. And so we're seeing a lot of these motor tics and verbal tics as a result.
And you're saying the emotions trigger the muscles somehow?
The emotions actually trigger a physical reaction. So if you was to jump, or if it were to, say something back in defense, or you kind of obsess in your mind what you should have said or what you could have said at that moment, all of those thoughts and ideas are flooding through the mind, and the brain can't tell the difference between what it sees with the eyes and what it sees in the mind. So it's reacting as if it's running, as if you're jumping, or as if you're saying these things, but it's an invisible manifestation. There's nothing in front of you.
Okay, so you have a tic, and you can't control it. It's basically it's happening beyond your control. It's automatic, right? Like a sneeze almost.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we see this some areas of muscles that are kind of spasmodic, and one of the ways that we assess that is, if they lift their shoulders up, move their head in different directions, and then if it creates a tic, we say, okay, this is an area that we want to focus on.
And so how would it work? So you're putting them through biofeedback, and you're trying to relax them, and you're monitoring their brain activity. Especially with a child, how do you get them to kind of connect the ability to stop ticking?
Well, this is where we use the assisted technology, electronic technology to help us. We have a software program. Say one example is they wear a sensor on their ear that detects heart rate variability, which is how well your heart rate is working with your breathing. And when they relax, they can actually make a hot air balloon fly. So we show them how to do it. And whenever they're stressed, the hot air balloon stays grounded. So there's a visual aid.
And you're saying once they relax, that's really all it takes to stop this?
That's a big part of it. Yeah, it's a huge part of it. We're not designed to kind of be. We're a lot like horses in the sense that we're prey animals, and we can assist or assess a trouble somewhere, and we have a burst of energy to lift the car off the baby, or to run away, or to grab a club. The fight or flight response. That reaction is not a permanent response, and so it's designed just to get us out of trouble.
Okay.
So a lot of times with these kids, you're seeing a conditioned response where they're always
locked in
fight or flight mode.
Okay, so then they're relaxed there, but they go back to school. I mean, she goes back to school, and the kids call her rotorhead again. How is she going to be able to keep calm at that point? Well,
she's going to have her own private techniques to work with. But the other thing that I'm going to instruct her to do is to, behaviorally not respond to things like that. Because if there's a reaction, then it makes it fun. Just a little while ago, I had a little girl that came in here, and she's the only girl in her entire class of boys, and she's trying to keep the environment quiet so she can study. And they're like, oh, Sarah wants it to be quiet here. Look, this isn't comfortable for Sarah. And so it was because she said something that created, she became an easy target. So it's really the reactions that draw on the emotional behaviors and that are not welcomed oftentimes.
Right. Now, we're talking about physical things, tics, you talked about your shoulder, but when you're talking about kids that come in that have a kind of a depressed quality about them from having been bullied, I mean, how do you deal with that through biofeedback? Is there any way to really address that kind of an issue?
Yeah. There's if they're consistently in a depressed state, we can kind of identify the triggers. Well, what makes you feel this way? And so then what we often find is actually the things that make them feel depressed are heightened responses. I don't like it. Somebody's picking on me, or somebody's calling me a name. And so, but instead of having this fight or flight reaction, it's called learned helplessness. They give up, and they shut down, and they start to cry, or they walk away. And so that's where a lot of the depression comes in, is they just essentially are giving up, and they're not utilizing anything to kind of help them out of the situation.
Right. So if they're learning through biofeedback how their brain's operating, how do you find the part where they're not depressed? How do you actually access that?
Well, there's a couple of things that we do. If it's electronically, we can actually help them to think about things that make them feel happy, things that make them feel comfortable, and then we see what effect it has on the electronic device. It's actually measuring physiology. So if it's measuring their muscles and all of a sudden they relax, and then there's a bunch of the hot air balloon flies, and say, oh, look, but these are some things you can think about that'll actually make you feel more comfortable. That process is called decentering.
You're saying when people are depressed, sometimes their muscles are actually tense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, if you think about like what hypothetically what a depressed person would look like, their head would be bowed down, maybe hands in their pockets, looking straight down, shoulders up to their ears.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're actually they're in a state of tension. I mean, people don't think about it. I don't think about that. Depression is almost like you're just lethargic and nothing's happening. But it sounds like it's quite different, really.
That's the learned helplessness aspect of it. Yeah. That's the giving up. This goes back to Watson's dogs. Yeah. He actually conducted a study, this is in the 50s, where they would put a dog in this little system. It's a box with grates. And they would send electrical current into the grates. And there's a little net, almost like a tennis court, dividing the two grates. And so then whenever they'd turn on the electrical current, the dog would kind of move around and bounce, and then soon learn that if he hops over to the other side, there's no current. And so then vice versa, and the dog essentially just learned that if something's going on here, then you flee. Right. But then when they turned on electricity in both grates, and the dog tried both sides to escape and couldn't, it just laid down while the current was actually shocking the body. And that's called learned helplessness.
Rusty Lozano, licensed professional counselor. Find him online at onlinebiofeedback.com. That's onlinebiofeedback.com. Rusty, thank you.
You're welcome, Michael. Yep. Have a good day.